online and in person. So happy to be here with you, speaking Krishna Katha. So today I will share my screen to read the verse. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, 3rd chapter, text 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 All right. Again, Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 3, 22. So I will chant the Sanskrit. Ayam tvasabhyastava janma naugrihe shrutvagrajamste nyavadit sureshwara satevataram purushai samarpitam shrutvadhunaiv apisarat yudayita. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O my Lord, Lord of the demigods, after hearing the prophecy that you would take birth in our home and kill him, this uncivilized Kamsa killed so many of your elder brothers. As soon as he hears from his lieutenants that you have appeared, he will immediately come with weapons to kill you. So yeah, for some brief context, this chapter is largely composed of Vasudeva, Krishna's father, speaking to and offering prayers to Krishna after Krishna took birth and revealed himself in his form as God, as four-armed Vishnu. So in that way, Vasudeva, he knows who his son is. And then later, of course, for the sake of Leela, Krishna reverts to his so-called human-like, his two-armed sweet baby Krishna form. But right now, yeah, this is Vasudeva offering prayers and speaking to Krishna in this mood of reverence and understanding really who Krishna is. So, purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Kamsa has here been described as asabhya, meaning uncivilized. What does asabhya mean? Uncivilized. Or most heinous, because he killed the many children of his sister. When he heard the prophecy that he would be killed by her 8th son, this uncivilized man, Kamsa, was immediately ready to kill his innocent sister on the occasion of her marriage. An uncivilized man can do anything for the satisfaction of his senses. He can kill children, he can kill cows, he can kill Brahmins, he can kill old men. He has no mercy for anyone. According to the Vedic civilization, cows, women, children, old men, and Brahmins should be excused if they are at fault. But asuras, uncivilized men, do not care about that. At the present moment, the killing of cows and the killing of children is going on unrestrictedly. And therefore, this civilization is not at all human. And those who are conducting this condemned civilization are uncivilized asuras. Such uncivilized men are not in favor of the Krishna consciousness movement. As public officers, they declare without hesitation that the chanting of the Hare Krishna movement is a nuisance. Although Bhagavad Gita clearly says, Satatang kirtayanto mam yatantas cha dridha vrataha. According to this verse, it is the duty of the Mahatmas to chant the Hare Krishna mantra and try to spread it all over the world to the best of their ability. Unfortunately, society is in such an uncivilized state that there are so-called Mahatmas who are prepared to kill cows and children and stop the Hare Krishna movement. Such uncivilized activities were actually demonstrated in opposition to the Hare Krishna movement's Bombay center, Hare Krishna land. As Kamsa was not expected to kill the beautiful child of Devaki and Vasudeva, the uncivilized society, although unhappy about the advancement of the Krishna consciousness movement, cannot be expected to stop it. Yet we must face many difficulties in many different ways. Although Krishna cannot be killed, Vasudeva, as the father of Krishna, was trembling because in affection he thought that Kamsa would immediately come and kill his son. Similarly, although the Krishna consciousness movement and Krishna are not different and no asuras can check it, we are afraid that at any moment the asuras can stop this movement in any part of the world. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
What verse was it?
This is 10:3:22. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaplantikam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lagete Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, the deliverer of the most fallen, by whose mercy the dumb can become eloquent speakers and the lame can cross mountains. So praying to all the assembled devotees here, especially dear seniors here, Adi Purusha Prabhu and Arjuna Prabhu, please bless me that I might be able to speak something that is of relevance and it's beneficial for all of our spiritual lives. Thank you very much. So, right, stop the screen share. Let me just open it up to you guys first. Is there anything you heard in the purport that really struck you? If so, what was it? We'll start with in person. Just shout it out. I'll
I was
repeat it now.
wondering when you talk, I know about the killing of cows, obviously we use allowed in our society. I wasn't sure what you mean by the killing of kids. I mean, you're talking about war? Are you talking about abortions? I'm just wondering what they're talking, what he was talking about there.
Yeah, so my understanding, Alan was, mentioning the part in the purport about uncivilized men, asuras, demons, can do anything for the satisfaction of their senses, which in this day and age includes killing cows, killing Brahmins, killing children. So what exactly does that mean by killing children? Yeah, my understanding is Srila Prabhupada is referring to war and also abortion. Yeah, these different ways of, absolutely. Anything else that you heard that stood out?
I was struck in the very beginning of the purport, Prabhupada was saying that they're prepared to do anything for their sense gratification. Governor.
Yeah, same thing stood out for me. This phrase, an uncivilized person is prepared to do anything for the gratification of their senses. This is an asura. And I was thinking, I was just reading this quote the other day. This person was saying that wherever there is slavery, there cannot be freedom, right? Pretty logically obvious. And he was saying that there's a more subtle form of slavery that people don't think of, which is being a slave to one's senses. So there can never be freedom to fully be a person, a sura, a sane, person aligned with our true nature if we are not in control of our senses. So yeah, this is something that we'll focus on in today's discussion. Let's see if there's one more point. Ananda Murari.
This point that Srila Prabhupada makes about this Krishna conscious movement, that it's not expected to be stopped. And he's saying that, although there may be difficulties along the way, that there's a sense of it's unstoppable what Mahatmas was starting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Nanda Murari Prabhu mentioning the point about, because this Srila Prabhupada's words, this movement is non-different from Mahaprabhu, from Krishna. It cannot be checked. It can't be stopped by anything. But then it's really interesting, as some devotees pointed out here in the chat, that right after that, we hear Srila Prabhupada, he says that, yeah, although this movement is non-different from Krishna, therefore it cannot be stopped. Also, we're afraid that at any moment the Asuras can stop this movement in any part of the world. So how do we reconcile this? And let's see, there's one comment from Angelica also. I'll read this. I find it curious of the use of the word uncivilized, because I'm not sure what that means exactly. It reminds me of the Western standard of savage and civilized, and how in the Western first world countries, India is described as third world and less civilized by the material advancement. I would appreciate the definition of this word in this context. Wow, super relevant comment. Thank you, Angelica. That bridges very perfectly into what I had planned to speak about. It's like Krishna's real or something, super soul connection. So anyway, yeah, to finish up on that last point about, yeah, how do we understand that this movement cannot be stopped? But Srila Prabhupada himself, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, one who's fearless at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, is saying that he's afraid that any moment the Asuras can put a halt to the spreading of the Sankirtan mission of love of Godhead that Mahaprabhu is distributing freely through his associates and devotees. And so this is my reflection and thought on that. And of course, this is just, I don't directly have Shastra to back this up, but there's a reference I've read of Srila Prabhupada where he says that the movement can only be stopped from within. In other words, from us, from the devotees. And so I was thinking that, yeah, in that way, it can be reconciled, these dichotomies that Srila Prabhupada states in this purport, that the Asuras can't stop the movement, but they can, in the sense that if we, the people, the devotees in the Bhakti movement, adopt Asuric mentalities through their influence and become offensive towards each other, then the activities, the spreading love of God, of the holy names, will diminish. So that's my thought there. I'd love to. Adi Purusha Prabhu, to you.
Yeah, it's interesting to consider Yoga Maya. Mother Jasoda is thinking, if I don't feed Krishna, he'll die. If I don't feed Krishna, he'll die, you know. And Vasudeva similarly is concerned. Oh, come to me, okay. So out of concern for Krishna, not out of concern for our own comfort and safety, you know, in the mood of Yoga Maya, thinking that we must protect Krishna. We're concerned that Asuras might impede the activities of Krishna's devotee. But it's, in one sense, it's simultaneously, the fact is that Krishna is more powerful than any demon. And demons are bound up by the most material nature of it. An evil person, if he's bound up head to toe with rope, you're not afraid of him at all. So we flip back and forth between, like Mother Jasoda looking in Krishna's mouth, between understanding that Krishna's got it together, and nobody's going to stop him, and also in the mood of being protected, sorry for Krishna's benefit.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Adi Purusha Prabhu, for this is a very relevant point, the concept of Yoga Maya as opposed to Mahamaya, Krishna's illusory potency, which makes us come under the influence of wanting to gratify our senses and do anything to gratify our senses, like purport's talking about. Whereas Yoga Maya is Krishna's illusory potency, which facilitates pastimes and loving exchanges between him and his devotees. And so in that sense, Adi Purusha gave the example of Vasudeva and Devaki. They're concerned about Krishna's welfare. Oh my gosh, if he doesn't eat, he's gonna die, even though he's God. But they're taking care of him as their child. And in that way, Srila Prabhupada, and through that influence of Yoga Maya, having that concern, even though objectively in the big picture there's no need for it, it creates love and urgency and service. And so in the same way, Srila Prabhupada being afraid that the movement can be checked creates a great sense of urgency to do everything we possibly can to be an instrument for continuing to spread this mission. And so we can adopt that mood in our process of devotional service, our practice. And Nanda Murari.
Well, as you were speaking, it also just reminded me that, or it came to my mind that it brings us to kind of an alertness and an awareness, not to become comfortable. I was talking with a friend recently, and he was describing how in traditional native cultures down in South America, every night they're actually, or before the sunrise, they're praying that the sun comes up. And they feel as though if we don't pray, then the sun won't come up. Right? So there's a sense of they're not taking for granted that the sun's just going to rise again. So similarly, as devotees, not just taking it for granted that, oh, the movement will be here, but kind of this sense of alertness and urgency that it's like, oh, we have to maintain it also. It was coming to my mind, that just kind of this sense of responsibility that Prabhupada's kind of imparting on us. But yeah, at any minute, the demonic governments can shut things down. And so becoming alert, attentive, and responsible to the fact that maintaining something solid and fragile.
And then, so as Ananda, you're pointing out, when there's this sense of alertness and responsibility in our sadhana and our activities in connection with Krishna consciousness, then complacency diminishes, and that's a great obstacle in the sadhaka's journey, to become complacent and become mechanical in our chanting, in our service, in our practice. Thank you. Take one more, and then I'll get into some
I was just going to say that speaks to your point, the original point as well, that as although the movement will ultimately go on, still we see so many times the parampara has been broken for a period of time, where for whatever reason, spreading of the Krishna conscious movement apparently stopped, and maybe it's going subtly. But I think it speaks to both your points that, so for that reason also we must maintain this vigilance of both personally and for the movement itself, making sure that it is safe in its progression.
Sure.
What occurring to my mind when you mentioned like the dichotomy internally, because sometimes the movement is going to go on and ultimately Krishna's going to win. But you'll have like, okay, in dictatorial countries, they can just shut Krishna down. But in a sense, in our society, there's even a more dangerous threat because of the materialistic culture, which like despises our values and mocks people who believe in God, believe in faith. It's actually more dangerous. People are not going to be coerced by government directly like a dictatorship, but the society just socially makes you feel like you're an outcast, that you're ridiculous, there's something wrong with you. So we really got to stick to our guns and see, our faith there, and then the materialism that's constantly mocking us.
I like this, particularly that phrase that you brought up, Alan. We have to stick to our guns in this battle in devotional service. And also, that for me, that relates to what you mentioned, Anupam Prabhu, that we see historically kind of like lapses in time in the parampara, where the movement, at least externally, it wasn't really progressing. And then it took, great Mahajans, Mahabhagavat devotees to revamp and create Renaissance type of techniques for pushing on distribution of bhakti. And I was just thinking that the general kind of mood is Srila Prabhupada very often speaks about the process of Krishna consciousness in these kind of like military terms. He says this is to practice devotional service is to declare war on the illusory energy. And he would oftentimes sign off his letters from camp so-and-so base. I forget the exact wording, but like these are strategic military zones from which we're building our resources and our weapons to drop bombs on Maya and try to save the suffering and bewildered souls from this incessant attack of the crashing waves of Maya. And I was just yesterday, I was hearing one of my mentors, he was talking about the difference between soldiers and warriors. And Prabhupada, he writes about this in the Introduction to Krishna book, that he's speaking in the context of the Battle of Kurukshetra, that there's soldiers in this battle. Soldiers are those who fight to live. In other words, I have to fight so I can survive. And warriors are those who live to fight. So we want to be spiritual warriors. We don't want to be worriers. Like, okay, I have to live. Right? Yeah, I have to fight just so I can live, just so I can get by. No, we want to live to fight. Live so that we can make a contribution to the movement, to Srila Prabhupada's mission. Live in such a way that we can go on with strength. So yeah, now we're gonna kind of get into a few points from the purport. First one, again, connects back to Angelica's reflection and comment and question on, what exactly does being civil mean in this context? And so, maybe the general theme that I'll speak a few points on is that Krishna consciousness is the process of becoming civilized. And I was looking into the etymological, the history, the etymology of this word civil. So in this context, in the purport, it's very clear that Srila Prabhupada is using the term in the sense where civil is defined as affable and courteous, words like this, kind. So friendly, considerate. To sum it up in one word, maybe civil means personal. That's what our movement is. That's what Bhakti means, to be a person. And to be a person means to have these traits when we interact with other persons. That's relationships are built on these things. And so civil means to really be a holistic, well-rounded person who can actually interact with and share and receive love from other persons, primarily Supreme Person, Krishna. And so, along those lines, to be civilized, to be a citizen, is to fulfill the duties of the society. And in order to, in modern day culture, there's so much emphasis, especially in kind of like liberal politics, on these are my rights, you guys are impeding on my rights, which there's validity in that, but it seems like there's not much discussion about what are my duties in order to warrant having those rights of a society, of a civilization. So the process of becoming civilized through Krishna consciousness is the process of fulfilling our duties as citizens in order to inherit the rights that we have as parts and parcels of Krishna, like in the purport to the famous Tat Te Anukampam verse, Lord Brahma's prayers, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 8th verse, about one who anticipates Krishna's mercy, expects it, but all the while going on, and they might be suffering, and the results of their so-called karma that is creating challenges in their devotional service, but all the while they're grateful to Krishna. They see those challenges as Krishna's mercy to cleanse their misconceptions and shortcomings and blind spots in order to grow and be qualified to inherent to experience their right, inherent the kingdom of God. It's the language that Prabhupada uses in that purport. So our duty is to respect the laws of the society, of a civilization, and we're members in the broad sense of Krishna's creation. That's the ultimate society, the spiritual world. And yeah, it's like this concept that material world is really just a part of the spiritual world. Everything is spiritual because Krishna is completely spiritual, but there's a covering and we've become influenced by that covering. And then in a more kind of localized sense, we're citizens of ISKCON, of Srila Prabhupada's movement. And so, yeah, I'd like to discuss a little bit more about our duties as members of, as followers of Srila Prabhupada, followers in the line of Mahaprabhu, Krishna, ultimately. What are those duties and how do we carry them out? And so the first point I wanted to talk about is Satovrite. This means following in footsteps of the great souls of the previous acharyas. It comes from particularly as Satovrite phrase from Nectar of Instruction, verse 3. Is it 3 or 4? Yeah, 3. And then the next one is loving exchange. Yeah, so Utsaha nishchaya darya tat tat karma pravartana sangha tyaga Satovrite. So the 6 principles that are favorable towards developing pure devotional service, one of which Srila Rupa Goswami says is Satovrite, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. And in our purport to today's verse, Srila Prabhupada was speaking about Mahatmas and the duties of a Mahatma. So he was talking also about asuras and demoniac mentality infused persons who can do anything to gratify the senses. So the opposite of an asura is a sura, or a sober, a sane, properly aligned person. In other words, yeah, a Mahatma, a great soul, one who is broad-minded. Srila Prabhupada defines Mahatma as one who actually has the mental capacity and space with which to think beyond just the immediate gratification, pleasure, comfort of my own gross and subtle senses. And so, yeah, in the purport to today's verse, Srila Prabhupada, in the context of discussing the Mahatma and the duties of a Mahatma, a great soul, he quoted Bhagavad Gita 9:14, Satatang kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridha vrataha. That the duty of a Mahatma is satatam, always, kirtayanto, always chanting and hearing about Krishna. And with great determination, dhrida vrata, to go on continuously despite obstacles, challenges, which, yeah, as we also heard in the purport, can come from these asuric personalities who are not very much happy about the process of bhakti, especially things that we're doing in public, distributing the holy names and transcendental literatures that teach and glorify this process of bhakti. So the Mahatma is one who has determination to continually hear, chant, and share the process of Krishna consciousness. And yeah, so essentially, Satovrite, this duty of following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. Why is it necessary? Because the acharyas are those who have great influence in society, and that's why they're relevant in our lives and in the movement. And so we need to qualify ourselves to also be Mahatmas through the empowerment that comes from following in their footsteps, taking the dust of their lotus feet, taking their blessings by living in accordance with the values that they embodied and lived. And there's, of course, the famous verse in Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 21, Yad Yad Acharati Shreshtas Tat Tad Evetrojana Sayat Pramanam Kurute Lokas Tad Anuvartate. Whatever actions a great man follows, the common man, common person, they naturally follow because that's their frame of reference for how I should act as people who are seen as superiors, how they act. And so the challenge is, Srila Prabhupada discusses in that purport, in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, is that there are natural Mahatmas and there are actual Mahatmas. So a natural Mahatma is just anyone in a position of authority in society. So teachers, organizational leaders, politicians, these kinds of persons. And of course, in today's purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about the so-called Mahatmas, or in other words, natural Mahatmas, because they're in some position to which one should be a Mahatma. Having that position, they should exhibit certain qualities, but they don't more times than not in today's society. So the people in general are bewildered because this is the example. This is where the values are being perpetuated for how to act in society. And so the Krishna consciousness movement is meant to develop actual Mahatmas, actual leaders, people who have influence, who can influence the general population to adopt these values of alignment with spiritual truths, with being soul separate from the body, the gross and subtle senses, part and parcel of Krishna, intimately connected with all other souls in loving relationship with service to Krishna. And so in order to have influence, to progress towards becoming a Mahatma through Satovrite, following the footsteps of the previous acharyas, we ourselves need to be influenceable, right? This is, everyone knows it. A great teacher is one who is a great student. So a great influencer is one who is influenceable, and particularly one who is open to being influenced by the right people and by the right sources. So in this same verse in the Nectar of Instruction, this most prominent acharya, one of the most prominent acharyas, Srila Rupa Goswami, who we want to follow in the footsteps of, this is our duty. He speaks about Utsaha Nishchaya Darya Tat Tat Karma Pravartana Sangha Tyaga, giving up the Sangha of worldly minded persons and influences. And also, so how important is this? The importance of association and molding our lives around what we're influenced by. It's so important that Rupa Goswami, in the Nectar of Instruction, he gives these 6 principles in this text 3 that are favorable to the execution, the development of pure bhakti. And in the previous verse, he gives 6 principles which are unfavorable. And in that verse, Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha jana sangha, worldly minded persons, giving up to. So in both verses, this is the only principle that he gives twice. He lists it under something that should be given up in order to develop bhakti. You should give up the association of worldly minded persons, and as something that you need to do, you need to have good association. So that's how crucial association is. And of course, association is who we spend our time with, and even more subtle and more important, who we share our hearts with, and in that way who we are open to being influenced by the hearts of. So of course, in modern age, in this world, it's inevitable to some extent or another. Some of us are in positions where we may not have to interact so much. Some of us may be working full-time in the world with non-devotees, and that's part of our sadhana, part of our service, is to interact in the world on behalf of Prabhupada and Krishna and be a representative of the Mahatmas, the previous acharyas. So we have to be sure that we go about these duties in a way that we're not becoming too influenceable by the energy, the conceptions, the ideas, the values of materialistic people who are still very much drowning in illusion, in Mahamaya, and the values that are perpetuated by these institutions, that these so-called Mahatmas, that are actually asuras that Srila Prabhupada talks about here, that they're perpetuating. And so in that light, it's in order to be basically, in order to have the strength. How do we have the strength to interact, to be exposed to Maya, to these energies, and not be influenced, not take it on to the detriment of our own level of refinement of consciousness? Is we have to be fortified by Satatam kirtayantumam yatantas dridha vrataha, by constant hearing and chanting with great determination. And there's this, one of my favorite funny little analogies, references that my spiritual master likes to give is that it's a very bad idea to shop for food when you're hungry, because you'll buy all kinds of things that you don't need. So in the same way, it's a even worse idea to interact with the material world without having properly fed and nourished yourself with that which is truly nourishing on the level of the soul. A strong daily sadhana, a system of hearing and chanting about Krishna in the association of sadhus, devotees, and of course, ideally in-person sadhu sangha. But we're so fortunate in this day and age. Bhakti Choru Maharaj I was hearing about how he would stress so much that technology, all these developments that have so many detriments, they're also great blessings from Mahaprabhu as tools for the unification and the ability to spread the Sankirtan mission, because now we can do things like this. We can have sadhu sangha over Zoom and all these kind of far out ways that couldn't have dreamed of 50, 100 years ago. So so important that we have our morning meal of Krishna Bhakti, hearing and chanting, and sadhu sangha, ideally every day to some extent, so that we can be already satiated our hunger, so that we're not hungry in the wrong, looking to eat in places that aren't going to nourish us, that are going to cause digestive issues in terms of bewilderment, not knowing how to process the experiences that we're having in this Martya Loka, this world of temporality, this world of death. So the Mahatma is the one who is constantly asking themselves, how can I best glorify Krishna? How can I best serve Krishna? And this brings in the importance of prayer, in that which goes hand in hand with sadhana. Of course, prayer is a part of our sadhana. And japa, chanting the holy names, is inherently a form of prayer. Srila Prabhupada summed it up as, Krishna, please help me. Oh, energy of Krishna. Oh, Krishna, source of all pleasure. Oh, all attractive one. Rama, source of all pleasure. Please engage me in your service. Please empower me and show me how I can best glorify and serve you. And so, I've been reflecting on and appreciating the importance of prayer and cultivating relationship with our japa sadhana, our daily chanting of the holy names, as conscious prayer and dialogue with Krishna. And then in order to facilitate that, for me at least, I need to also pray separately from my direct chanting and have dialogues with Krishna and share my heart. And again, this goes back to, what does it mean to be civil? It means to be affable, be courteous, be considerate in your dealings with other persons in relationships. So to be civil means to be a person. To be a person means to have relationships, and to have a relationship with Krishna means to have a dialogue with Krishna. And that's what prayer is. That's the opportunity that offers to us. And so it's so important that we find a way. How can we best and most sincerely, most deeply express our hearts in a personal way from within to Krishna? So we're so fortunate. We have holy names. We have representatives of Krishna, great living, walking, breathing Mahabhagavats. Those who are completely absorbed in Krishna 24/7. We have deities, direct manifestation by Krishna's inconceivable energy of his full potency in a form that we can see right in front of us with our current state of vision. And in that way, it's easier for the mind to direct the dialogue in a personal way to Krishna, who in our covered state, it can be very hard because Krishna is inconceivable, achintya. It's the essence of our philosophy, is that just like we're all persons, Krishna is a person, but he's achintya. He's the inconceivable supreme person. So we need to do whatever we can to develop personalism in our dealings with Krishna. So the importance of prayer, which will empower us to go on with determination, to maintain the right association, to mold our lives around the principle of hearing and chanting and getting a taste, to not drown under the influence when we sometimes have to surf in the waves of the material energy out there doing our duties with who knows what kinds of people, what kinds of influences, and we can be fortified to continue following in the footsteps, Satovrite, following the footsteps of the great Mahatmas, Acharyas, to ourselves become a Mahatma, which is the whole process of parampara. So that's my first thought in terms of the duties of a citizen. So we'll just take one or two reflections here, and then I'll share another, and then at the end we'll have time for more. But is there anything brief, any points you'd like to reflect back, expand on, anything that struck you? Ananda Murari?
Yeah, sorry.
Do you want to, can you guys hear from the top, or do you want to come up next to here so they can?
Can they hear me from here?
There's screaming people, 20 people that can hear you.
Yeah, if you could come up just a little bit.
Gotcha. Yeah, just this point on sadhu sangha. We were recently having a Bhagavatam retreat, and we were discussing a lot about this sadhu sangha, and sadhu sangha being a thing that's sometimes, yeah, it's not something that I need in the beginning and a little bit in the middle, but then once I become a Mahatma, then I'll be set. But sadhu sangha is a consistent need, just as the eye needs the sun to see. And without the sun, the eye cannot see on its own. The eye needs the sunlight. So similarly, throughout our entire process, and even beyond, what to speak of imperfection, I mean, the whole spiritual world is sadhu sangha. So just the vital necessity of sadhu sangha all along the way, completely.
Thank you so much, Nanda. Oh, what a brilliant point. Yeah, and you were reminding my dull, forgetful mind of, yeah, another essential point that I hope to speak on today is, as you mentioned, yeah, it's not that when one becomes a Mahatma that, yeah, I don't need sadhu sangha. Now I'm an acharya. I'm a great soul. I am fortified in my connection with Krishna. But as Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's favorite poet, writes in his Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadava, in this bhajan, the very last line is no, it's right before Nam Sankirtan Kohe Narottam Das. So what's right before? After that, it's anyway, the Bengali or yes. One more time, Vasudev Prabhu. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pada Padma Kore Ash Nam Sankirtan Kohe Narottam Das. So Nam Sankirtan Kohe, speaking, singing, Narottam Das, I am singing Nam Sankirtan, the holy names of Lord Hari, so that Shri Guru Vaishnava Pada Padma Kore Ash, so that my desire of having the lotus feet, the association of Shri Guru Vaishnava, Shri Guru and the Vaishnavas, the devotees. So I am engaging in bhakti so I can have sadhu sangha. This is just inconceivable uniqueness of our Vaishnava theology that is just unparalleled in other religious and spiritual traditions around the world. This concept of it's not just that we're going through the Son, through Guru, spiritual master, so that we can access the Father, Krishna, and have a relationship, but that we have a relationship with the Father, with Krishna, so that we can get the association, the mercy, the loving relationships with the sons, with sadhus, Krishna's parts and parcels. So yeah, I love this point that you mentioned, Ananda. Thank you so much. And so yeah, first point in the duties of a citizen, again, was satovrite, following in the footsteps of great acharyas. So there's another practical takeaway of how do we do that. We pray for sadhu sangha as our ultimate desire, as we can follow in Narottam Das Thakur's mood. So another duty in fulfilling our obligations as living in Krishna's kingdom, Krishna's civilization, is to avoid offenses. Of course, essentially to avoid offenses to Krishna's devotees. But then, of course, in the broad sense, everyone is Krishna Bhakta, whether they know it or not. So we should do everything we can to be non-offensive towards everyone, but especially those who are actively practicing Krishna consciousness. And yeah, today we recite one verse, the English and the Sanskrit, Sanskrit and the English translation of Mahaprabhu's Sri Shikshastakam, his direct instructions that he left for us. Today we recited the third verse, Trinadapi Sunichena Tarori Basahishmana Manina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari, that how can we have the taste with which to Kirtaniya Sadahari, to always go on chanting, which again, this Satatam Kirtayanto Mam, this is the duty of a Mahatma, is to constantly chant. And how do we do that? Mahaprabhu lays it out for us in this most essential verse, teaching that the ornament of a Vaishnav, with which their character should be garlanded by, is developing tolerance and humility and a mood of respecting everyone. And this is how we can avoid offenses. And by avoiding offenses is how we go from namabas, from offensive change of chanting Mahamantra through the clearing stage and ultimately to Shuddhanam through the pure stage, is by completely giving up any offenses or offensive mentalities. In order to do that, we have to actively cultivate humility, tolerance, patience, respect for everyone. And yeah, it's so easy just in the association of devotees, for me at least, my rascally conditioning and tendencies to become complacent and just start to overlook the incredible qualities and abilities of Krishna's devotees that they're offering in his service, and focus on the little faults that I perceive. Oh, why is this person doing this? They're speaking like that. Oh my gosh, this is And so so this idea Prabhupada talks about seeing a little spot on the moon and focusing on that, like, oh, look at this little imperfection, and just completely missing out on the effulgent, beautiful, cooling effulgence of the moon, and just seeing one tiny little spot. So in the same way, I like, as Raghunath, the illustrious co-host of Wisdom of the Sages, has this phrase, mind your own bhakti. It's pretty easy to find little faults and perceived faults and shortcomings in the character of other devotees. It's harder to do so in our own selves. So that's what we should do. We should mind our own bhakti and explore the ways in which we are at fault. Yeah, the ways in which we are coming short in our relationship with Krishna, and in keeping the focus not keeping the focus on fault finding others and setting ourselves up to create detrimental effects in our bhakti by focusing on finding faults in others, by utilizing that to look within. Bhakti Siddhanta spoke about this so frequently. Yeah, rather than pry into any perceived frailties of others, look within, amend yourself. There was one, great God brother of Srila Prabhupada. I think this quote comes from Bhakti Rashak Sridhar Maharaj. He said that my religion is to find fault with myself. So when we free up the energy of not worrying about others, minding our own bhakti, finding faults within ourselves, then it becomes clearer how we can uproot those faults and go through the process of anartha-nivritti in order to have actual capacity to love Krishna and thereby love his devotees. Sri Guru Vaishnava Pada Padma Koriyash, to fulfill the ultimate desire of the soul, to have intimate association and relationships with those who are serving Hari Krishna. And let's see.
I'm reminded in the Western tradition, don't judge, ye be judged. Or as Jesus said, he without sin cast the first stone. Don't be so self-righteous and that, be quick to judge others. Look at yourself and judge yourself first.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Judge yourself before you judge others, just like Bhakti Siddhanta stresses. So, Kaylee Kanana Prabhu, you want to say? Do you want to come up, or do you want me to just reflect it? Oh, you're just stretching. Okay, sure thing. Yeah, so the importance of avoiding offenses in order to actually be able to satovrite, follow in the footsteps of the great souls by constant hearing and chanting. The only way we can constantly hear and chant and be absorbed in the mood and the process of how can we constantly glorify Krishna is to have a taste for that. And the only way we can do that is by avoiding offenses. And so, maybe final thought I had on this process of becoming civilized through Krishna consciousness, becoming a real person, aligning with our personhood as a soul, is to be a sadhava. And what is a sadhava? Srila Prabhupada defines in the famous verse in Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 5th chapter, text 11, Tadvag Visargo Janataga Viplo, the verse that talks about the transcendental literatures which speak about bhakti, about devotion towards Krishna, and speak about Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, Leela, all of these aspects of Krishna as the Supreme Person, that these transcendental literatures can be properly heard, appreciated, and accepted. And right, to accept means to fully accept means to embody, to live in alignment with them. Who can they be accepted by? Grinanti Sadhava, accepted by one who is a sadhava, as Srila Prabhupada defines in this translation here, one who is thoroughly honest. So this is a duty of a citizen in Krishna's society, is to be thoroughly honest. And this is what empowers us to maintain determination through the long haul, the vast middle stage of anartha-nivritti, this process of rooting out everything which has been accumulated and cultivated within our subtle body, within the heart and consciousness throughout lifetimes, to root that out and to face the discomfort that comes when these things are revealed to us more and more through the mirror of the heart being cleansed, that we have to be thoroughly honest, because there's this dichotomy that comes that can be a little bewildering in my experience, is that once we make up our minds, okay, I want to be a devotee of Krishna, then it's okay, I'm a devotee. We're presenting ourselves to everyone, to the world. I'm a devotee. dress like a devotee. I carry around japa beads. I chant japa. I read devotional books. I go to the temple. I'm a devotee. But internally, when our anarthas come up more and more, Krishna presents them for us to deal with and work through so we can uproot them, remove these blockages to pure devotion. Then internally, we have this sense of, oh my gosh, this is horrendous. What's in there? Like, I'm not a devotee. So there's this dichotomy of, and we can get into the state of, not presenting ourselves honestly in sadhu sangha and trying to put on a show of being at a level that we're not quite at yet. And so, like Devamadava Prabhu's saying, is chant and be honest. That this is the process of a sadhava. And as Srila Prabhupada says here, a sadhava, one who is honest, is one who can actually accept and properly hear the transcendental truths presented through Bhakti Shastra. So presenting ourselves as what we really are, who we really are in our current state. And there's this way in which when we are vulnerable with devotees, right, particularly devotees who we have a relationship with, we've developed a deep kind of trust and intimacy with, and our uplines especially, and peers also, those who we can really, really share our hearts with and just present ourselves exactly as we are, where we're at, chant and be honest. When we do that, when we come to terms with our own darkness, our own current covering of darkness, and let that be known to devotees, then as we become open and they can see us, the relationship, the depth, the reciprocality, that's where of a real relationship, reciprocity, thank you, of a real relationship grows. And when they see us, then we can see them more deeply, more authentically. And when we see them, we can see their good qualities. And when we can see those more clearly, we can appreciate more with more capacity. When we do that, we can adopt their good qualities more effectively and be supported in the process of anartha nivritti. So not only does being thoroughly honest show us our own darkness more clearly, but it shows us the bright light of sadhu sangha and of sadhus in a way that we can develop and understand a practical plan. Okay, what do I need to be doing right now in this moment, in this current stage of my consciousness, in order to continue on my progressive march to pure devotional service? So pause there, realize it's almost darshan time, so we have time maybe for one or two quick reflections. Questions, probably not. The question means I have to answer. It's a whole discussion. So anything you heard? Kaylee, kind enough.
Just a reflection was.
Can you ask him to come up a little closer?
Yeah, I do want to say, otherwise I'd have to repeat. Thank you.
A reflection was I was cycling over Brooklyn Bridge yesterday for the first time with Ananda on one of those clunky city bikes, and the bridge naturally has an incline, and then it declines. And I was thinking that's a little bit like anartha nivritti, how it's a struggle to get up the hill, and it's a push and a push and a struggle. And then on the way down, when the bridge slopes, you can kind of stop pedaling and it becomes quite easy. And I was thinking, it's similar to anartha nivritti, I would imagine, if I ever get there, but how it's easy to stop pedaling when things get easier. And I was thinking, I don't want to be like that with my relationships. We struggle, initially to build a relationship, and then things might get easy, but we become familiar. And I was just thinking, how do I do that in my relationships with others? And how do I do that perhaps in my relationship with Krishna? And I'm thinking, if I'm struggling to get over Nartana Vritti, when Krishna consciousness then becomes easier, I hope that I don't relax and stop pedaling, but I actually keep trying, So yeah, that was just a reflection.
Wow. Thank you so much for that lovely addition, Kevikanana Prabhu. Yeah, it's like this famous story of Srila Prabhupada was praying really intently to Gaurnitai deities. I forget where. One disciple asked, "What are you praying for?" I know it, and he said, "I was praying not to fall down." It's like, pure. How would you fall down? Srila Prabhupada's like, yeah, the Acharya doesn't fall down because they're constantly praying not to fall down. So yeah, like Kaylee kind of said, we pray that, yeah, kind of even if that day comes when we're downhill, things become easier, that we're constantly praying like Narottam Das Thakur or Krishna, I beg you, please keep me in the association of devotees. Help me be vigilant and have a sense of urgency in my service to you. Yeah, I love that analogy of Anartana Vritti and pedaling up and then downhill on the other side of the vast middle ground of desert. Awesome. Any other quick reflections before darshan?
I just want to thank you for your class. I really enjoyed it. We're learning, and I look forward to having you give classes again.
Thank you so much. It's very touching, Alan.
Yeah, thank you so much for your class.
Thank you, Kevikanana. All right, any last quick ones, or otherwise we can end here. Let's see if there's anything quick on the chat. Thank you so much, devotees, for your attention. Let's see, Angelica has some comments that look really nice. 2 reflections. She was reminded how the whole creation runs on sacrifice. And so we're asked to perform austerities and receive an outcome of them. It exists everywhere, even in the most quotidian expressions of our lives, and how the ultimate price is giving our full attention and presence to a greater good. I love it. That's what a relationship is based on, loving exchanges through giving your full attention. Number 2, the highest method of discussion is basing it in mode of goodness and transcending it around truth, capital T, where we're open to being molded and transformed because our goal is to come to truth, welcome it in our mind and hearts, as opposed to having any other motive. Example she gave, being right or pretending to be important. Love it. Yeah, this reflection on being influenceable by the right sources, right associations, so that we can actually adopt, align with the truth, and have influence in terms of bringing other souls closer in their love for Krishna. So we're about to have darshan. Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here discussing wonderful devotees. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Vansha Kalpatrubhisha Kripa Sindhubhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki.
Dana Kriya Prabhu Ki Jai. Thanks for helping us pedal in today. Thank you so much. Good seeing everybody. Okay. Okay, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Have a wonderful day. Keep pedaling. Keep pedaling. It will go downhill.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.